Remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded and this recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking, and that avoids any background noise or feedback when others are speaking. If you do wish to speak, can you please put your hand up so that I can see you on the screen, or use the raise hand function, which is there on your screen. And then can we please ensure that all debates and discussion is raised verbally and not via the chat function, and that's for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and or to grab the attention of the chairman or democratic services officer, but anything else, can we please do it via that? And also keep it for points actually relevant to the meeting as well. So if anyone has any difficulty hearing or being heard when you're addressing the committee, can you either let myself or one of the democratic officers know? And then if you do have a webcam, try turning that off. This will help with broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth, so at least you can hear and then be heard. So just leaving then to welcome committee members and cabinet members and officers to the Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday the 13th of July. So I'm going to go to the first item, which is apologies for absence. So do we have any?
Vince Bailey.
Okay, thank you. Any others? No? All right. So item number 2 are the minutes of the meeting which are held on the 15th of June. Are we happy to agree those minutes?
Yeah,
yes.
Moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Lovely, thank you. And then item number 3 then, which is to receive declarations of interest, including whipping declarations under the council's code of conduct. So do we have any? No? Okay, that's lovely. So move on to the first item then, under the reports of the Director of Environment and Housing, and it's item number 4, which is the closure of accounts 2020 to 2021. So Matthew, do you want to take us through that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the first report is in relation to last financial year. So the position is still provisional at the moment, as the accounts are being audited, but this is the current position. And the recommendation of the report is that committee consider the report and the measures taken and proposed in the report. So the report focuses on the revenue budgets first, and there's a table at the top of page 3, which shows the budgets and then the provisional outturn against those budgets. So the table shows that all are on budget, apart from neighbourhood and transport services, which has an adverse variance of 28,000. The table also shows transfers to and from reserves, because although the budgets are balanced, there's usually either a transfer from or to reserves. As you can see in the neighbourhood and transport services line, the transfer from reserves is just over £1 million, which we were reporting through the year. We would need at least £1 million, and there's also other spends which we finance from reserves as well. And then the report then highlights variances to the budget and takes you through each service. So I'll focus on sort of the main points in there and the main reasons for any overspends. So neighbourhood services, we reported throughout the year that we were going to need money from reserves to support the budget in neighbourhood services. The main reason for the overspend, as we all know through the year, is the waste service and the pressures on the waste collection service. Obviously with COVID, there was additional pressures on the service. A lot of those were funded from Welsh Government, although we did also give staff a 10% pay increase from, I think it was sort of mid-March till August, However, that was funded by the council ourselves. Welsh Government sort of disallowed that spend. So obviously that put additional pressure on the budget as well. The report also highlights other areas such as winter maintenance, where we have a pressure most years, to be honest. Even if we get very minor snowfall or quite a few weeks of frost, then we do have pressure on that budget. And also it highlights the pothole budget and pressures on those budgets. So the budgets which we tend to go on about quite often, because there are pressures on these budgets ongoing. The report then goes on to discuss building services. Oh, sorry, just one other thing in neighbourhood services. We did also receive £1 million grant, so just over £1 million grant from Welsh Government, which was a COVID-19 grant, which was given to councils for being unable to make savings during the year due to COVID-19. So that grant was given to the council. However, it was fully allocated to neighbourhood services, because we had the biggest pressures really throughout the council. So we were given that £1 million grant. That helped to reduce the reserves that we needed to use. So if it wasn't for that grant, we would have used just over £2 million of reserves. We ended up using £1 million. So yeah, that was gratefully received, but it was a one-off. Building services, then the report goes on to discuss building services, paragraph 2.6. We reported again throughout the year that building services, especially the building maintenance account, was struggling due to lockdowns and not be able to carry out their normal functions, going into people's houses to do jobs, etc. So throughout the year, we were reporting between £750,000 and £1 million potential deficit. The final position was 590,000 deficit. However, we have reserves in building services, so we used 270,000 of those reserves to reduce the deficit down to 320. This was then funded part by the HRA, the Housing Revenue Account, and part by the general fund. So the position there wasn't quite as bad as we were hoping, because there was no further lockdowns towards the end of March. So the service sort of started picking back up again. The other trading units within building services, so the building cleaning trading unit actually made a surplus. They actually, through COVID, they were doing additional work, obviously cleaning in schools, etc. A lot of our offices and things like that. So they actually had additional work. So they made a surplus. The other services then, so regeneration and development management, both had break-even positions. Regeneration also managed to transfer money into reserves, and development management used a small amount from reserves, only 17,000. The report then goes on to discuss the capital budgets, and the capital outturn is shown at Appendix 2, so that all the schemes are shown at Appendix 2, and the spend against each scheme. Overall, a different position to our revenue budget. So we were £7.6 million less than budget on our capital schemes. However, a lot of that would have been slipped forward to this financial year, and the schemes that have been slipped forward are shown at Appendix 5, and they total £4.6 million. So quite a substantial amount of that spend has been carried forward to this financial year. Again, the report highlights some of the major sort of schemes where there was big differences, and mainly due to COVID and things like that. Obviously, some of these schemes took a lot longer than was initially envisaged, However, the first scheme to mention is the M4 to Cardiff Airport Transport Network scheme, and we're going to do a well tag stage 3 study on that scheme. However, I think we did a well tag stage 2 plus study, which then delayed the stage 3. So that budget was not fully spent, underspent 400,000. And then the next 3, so paragraph 2.15 to 2.17, the next 3 were all the same grant, which we had from Welsh Government for trying to increase our recycling levels and reusing items rather than recycling. But we were given the grant during the year, but all the schemes that were put forward, there was no chance of spending it in the year really. So we've managed to still claim the grants, and we'll spend them next year. They're highlighted in the report. And then the last one is the targeted regeneration initiative schemes. And again, due to COVID, applicants were unable to enter into some of these schemes. However, again, that's grant funded. However, that one can't be carried forward. Next is the reserves, and highlighting the reserves that we have and the reserves we've used. So Appendix 3 to the report shows the level of reserves at the start of the year, then how much has gone out from the reserve, how much come into the reserve, and then the final balance at the end of the year. So the total reserves for the committee at the end of the year, they total £11 million. However, a lot of those reserves are earmarked for certain projects. So we've got one for the vehicle replacement fund, we've got one for the transfer station, for the waste transfer station, which I think is about £1.5 million. So even though it seems a large amount of money, 11 million reserves, a lot of it is for certain projects, and Neighbourhood Services does have a large draw on reserves every year due to ongoing financial pressures. So yeah, the report shows movement on the reserves. And then the last thing to mention is at Appendix 4 is all the financial savings for 2021. For 2021, they only totaled 83,000, the overall savings targets, so a lot less than previous years, and they're showing as fully made those savings. It says it's a very small amount compared to the size of the budget. So yeah, that's a brief overview of the report. So I'll take any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
That was really detailed, and obviously you can see the constraints there, and obviously lots of the underspend as well, and the pressures that the department has faced over this last, well, more than a year now, hasn't it? Right, I've got a couple of speakers, so I'm going to take Andrew Robertson first. So Andy, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for that, Matthew. It's very well explained and very clear. I just wonder, is it right to refer to them as reserves if they've been earmarked? If a large amount of the money has already been earmarked, surely they can't be referred to as reserves.
Yeah, so we have sort of general reserves and what we call earmarked reserves as well, for certain schemes. I mean, they are still reserves because that money still may, it could still be decided to spend that money elsewhere. So even though it's committed in a way for a certain scheme, that scheme hasn't yet started. So in theory, the money is available in reserve if needed for a different purpose. But yeah, we call earmarked reserves an unearmarked reserve. So we have a general reserve in neighbourhood services as well, which I think is currently about 3 million. So we use that for things that sort of crop up during the year, you know, to meet pressures that crop up during the year, which we're unaware of. So yeah, hopefully that answers it a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matthew. That's very helpful. Has it always been that way? Is this a system we've always used?
Yeah. So we put money into earmarked reserves for certain projects which we think are going to happen down the line, and then we do just have general reserves as a council as well, which you know, fund the things that come out of the blue and the unexpected things that you know do arise.
Yeah, that's great. I just haven't been paying attention for the last 4 years, obviously.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Matthew. I mean, yes, just to point out that is standard financial practice with organisations, is that you can have your earmarked, your unearmarked, and you can also have your restricted, where you receive funding in for various projects. So those are standard financial procedures, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move now to Councillor Gwyn. John Gwyn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. It's Appendix 2. It's the slippage section, and it's line 8 and line 9. Line 8 refers to Boverton flooding, and it says that we've 47,000 in the programme and 5,000 spent. Could I ask what all this is about now? Because Boverton work was completed a long time ago. I would have thought there was any retaining work would have been completed by this. So I just wondered what that was about. That's the first one.
Sorry, Councillor John. What line did you say it was?
It's line 8, Boverton flooding.
Boverton flooding.
In slippage.
On slippage in
Slippage,
appendix,
yeah. And it's
appendix 5.
appendix 2, yeah.
I think that might be the other appendix 5, is it?
Appendix 2. First block is asset renewal, then you go down to slippage.
It's about 2/3 down the page, isn't it?
Yeah, Boverton flooding. There we go.
Yeah.
Line 37. Change your budget. 41,000, was that it?
That's the one. It was 47,000, 5,000 spent, and we're down to 42. Requested slippage of 42 via emergency powers to finalise scheme. But I thought this scheme had been completed. I just wondered what this was about.
Yeah, unless there's any retention.
That's what I wondered, but I didn't
Payments on
think
the
I was
scheme.
still there, you know, because we completed this scheme. Well, Miles is coming in, I think, possibly, but this was the scheme that completed
Yes.
around about 2016, end of 2016, early 2017 at the latest.
Okay.
Miles,
And
would you be able
the one under that is Land Maze Flood Management Scheme, and that's a shortage, an overspend. I take the 67,000 spent on that scheme was actually on consultants. I'm guessing now, but I would think that's the only money that would have been actually spent on that scheme. The consultancy report.
Yeah, it's possibly design from our engineers as well. Some of their time put towards design of the scheme. Yes, we can give you a breakdown of that spend.
The Boverton one, that you maybe let me know what that's all about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Miles, could you help us out there at all?
Yeah, Chair's understanding the Boverton scheme is contract retention, so it's part of the contract for the scheme. So they generally go on a year, 18 months after completion. So, you know, there's nothing unusual in that. As Gwyn has said, the scheme is technically finished.
So we still got to keep the money aside in case of any works to be done.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that's really up by now, because I mean, I was a cabinet member ending in 2017, and we're 4 years down the line. I'm just interested, actually, Miles, what I thought this money then could be pushed into other schemes, you know.
I'll I'll find out the definite amount of
just a little bit of detail. That's all.
on
Martin.
that. See, yeah,
Thanks
and
very much. Thank you.
same
Thank you,
with the
Chair.
landmass one as well.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, right, so we've got no other questions or comments. I'm just going to go quickly back to the recommendation, which is on page 2. Which is just asked us to consider the report and the financial measures taken and proposed. So are we happy to agree that? Yeah, lovely, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 5 then, Matthew, it's you again, which is the revenue and capital monitoring for 1st of April to the 31st of May.
Okay, yeah. So so this is the current financial year now. So the first 2 months of the financial year. So same format as normal. So the again, the recommendation is that committee consider the position with regard to 21-22 revenue capital budgets. Again, like I said, same format. So the table right at the start of the report in paragraph 2.1 shows the projected spend against each budget heading. So again, for neighbourhood services, unfortunately, similar position to last year, we're projecting at the current time